Alrighty, guys, for the second to last time, let's talk about Andor. Andor Season 2 episodes 7 through 9. We are now 2 years before the Battle of Yavin, as we are fast approaching, or is it 1 year? 2 years, 2 years, right? Because I have no idea. Honestly, I don't know. Anyways, we are approaching Rogue One, is what I was trying to say. And so this is going to be a full spoiler discussion for episodes 7 through 9. Again, the second to last chunk of Andor Season 2. Next week, we'll be talking about the finale of it all. And then hopefully, I'll try to do a rewatch of Rogue One after seeing Andor season 1 a couple months ago and then Andor Season 2 just now. So hopefully we'll be able to get that done as well. But anyways, guys, let's dive in. This is a full spoiler discussion for Andor Season 2, episodes 7 through 9. So if you haven't seen them, no worries. Make sure to save this segment to watch later, save the podcast, or skip ahead if you are listening to the entire podcast and come back once you have seen the episodes. Or if you don't care about the spoilers, then let's dive into it. So just for a quick recap on my thoughts thus far on Andor Season 2, I really liked it. I think episodes 1 through 3 were kind of uneven, in my opinion, and it was a little odd because there were those signs of that absolute brilliance that you know and love from Andor, right? I did a rewatch of Season 1, and I'll admit the first time I saw Season 1, I don't know whether it was because it was episode by episode and they just didn't flow as well when they were singular episodes, or I don't know what it was. But the first time I saw Andor Season 1 when it came out a couple years ago, I liked it, didn't love it. But I rewatched Andor Season 1 recently. I did a segment about it on the YouTube channel. You can go check out my updated thoughts on Andor Season 1, and I really liked it. I think it's fantastic, and the way that they were able to set up all the intrigue and whatnot. Andor feels like a show that will just get better every time you watch it. And so I'm looking forward to the day when I will eventually do a rewatch of Andor Season 2 as well, because it's just been a lot to take in, honestly, every single time you watch an episode of Andor. And so I'm very much looking forward to doing a rewatch of this as well. But I thought the first 3 episodes were a little uneven. I think that they were good, setting up a lot of different things on that, the farm planet. And then I think that Andor getting stranded on the jungle planet, Yavin, what ended up being Yavin, was a little unnecessary and honestly not my favorite part of that entire arc, but that's all well and good. And then we really did get to dive into the Gorman plot, which I didn't realize was going to be, because I thought it was going to be kind of like Aldhani, right? Where Aldhani obviously had, in Season 1, had, big implications throughout the rest of the season, but it wasn't like it was pretty much self-contained to those 3 episodes. And I thought the Gorman part of the show was going to be similar, but it looks like the Gorman part of the show, obviously with episodes 7 through 9, the Gorman massacre has concluded, and it was crazy, and it was just visceral, and it was terrifying to watch. But that part of the show is concluded. But I didn't realize it was going to be basically the whole brunt of the show. Now, the last 3 episodes, I have no idea what it's going to be. We'll talk about K2SO and Bix and all that kind of stuff leading into the final 3 episodes. I have no idea where we're going with those. But the Gormans were basically the big plot point heading into this season. So I really liked the last 4 episodes, the last 3 episodes, episodes 4 through 6. Really thought it focused up the stuff about Luthen and Clea and Lonnie and at the art gallery with Krennic. That was really great. Stuff about Cyril and Deirdre, getting to sort of unearth this plot and the mini rebellion going on inside Gorman, and Andor sort of infiltrating that, and all that was really good. So we head into episodes 7 through 9. And we'll talk about, again, I'm not going to go as in-depth because there are 3 episodes to talk about here, but I just want to say that, again, there are things in here where I feel like it's going to benefit a lot from a rewatch just because there's so much going on. And it's a mini movie, right? Because you're watching 3 episodes that are basically an hour and a half to an hour 45 minutes in total, almost 2 hours basically in total. It's a lot to take in. And so I will say that, for parts of these episodes, I'm like, yeah, where are we going? Don't know where we're going. By the end of it, though, when it all comes together with Mon Mothma's speech, and at the end, it's amazing. It's brilliant. So really happy about that. Let's dive in to episode 7 here. Finally, we jump in, and it's I guess it is Battle of Yavin, BBY2, because that's what it says here. But we're finally at Yavin, so a lot happens between BBY3 and BBY2 because this is when the rebellion starts to really take shape, and we don't get to see it, but this is when Yavin 4 is really established on the base here. And there's some conflicts going on, right, between Will and Andor, and they're kind of talking it out, hashing it out, and Andor is realizing that, kind of thinking about the fact that they need an army now, and Luthen still wants Gorman, and there's a sort of tension going on between Will, who wants Deirdre dead, and he's been, I guess he's been on Gorman for a while, because he has that, I don't know if it's his partner or whoever that he's with at the end of this arc, but he's like, yeah, we need to take out Dedra. And I guess Gorman is back in play for Luthen. And meanwhile, Dedra is just setting a trap for everybody. And we see her kind of go through a transformation as well at the end. But we'll talk about that in episode 9. Cyril is also starting to have questions about Gorman as well. And he obviously, he's a very interesting and complicated character at the end of the day. And this is obviously the last, I would presume that we're going to see of Cyril. But, you know, looking back at his character throughout the entire series, it's really interesting because he's a very, I mean, and again, I know it's a loaded word, but he's a very unstable character. And it's, you know, it's interesting because he has this sort of will they, won't they, not will they, won't they, but kind of a on and off thing with Dedra going on. And meanwhile, he's having questions about Gorman because he wants to be an Imperial loyalist, but then it seems like he's having all of his beliefs questioned. But then he sees Cassian at the end, and so obviously a lot of these things are going out the window. And so it's just a complicated character. It really, really is. And I'm glad that we get to see complicated characters like this because it's not, you know, they're not just black and white. That's what's great about this show is that the rebels do things that are morally really unpleasant, right? And meanwhile, the Empire is just oppressive and crushing. It's almost like that thing in Thunderbolts. If you guys have seen Thunderbolts, it's in the trailers. It's not a spoiler. Where Val says that there are good guys, or there are, you know, you think there are good guys and bad guys, but you realize that there are bad guys and worse guys. And I'm not saying that about the rebels at all. I'm saying, you know, obviously the rebels are fighting against the oppression of the Empire and whatnot. But the methods that the rebels are using, we even see this in Rogue One at the beginning with Cassian. I wonder if we're going to get to see what led to that event, right, where we meet Cassian in Rogue One, where, you know, he has to kill someone to get information out of him. And it's just kind of the desperation of these rebels that they're going through. And I think that that's a really interesting exploration of what's going on with the rebels thus far. So meanwhile, though, we have a little bit of a scene here with Andor and a Force healer. And it's interesting, right? Because this is what sets in motion the ending of this arc where Bix eventually leaves. But, you know, he's freaked out by the Force healer. But Bix is like, I think she's right. I think that, you know, you are a leader and you are going to be super important. It also kind of sets up the relationship between him and Chirrut and Baze in Rogue One. I think that that's interesting. I'm very interested to see, you know, when I rewatch Rogue One, what that looks like. But really, what this is, it's about Bix, and it's about her understanding that he is crucial to the rebellion, and he needs to be there. Which is a really powerful thing. You know, she's realizing that he's going to be one of the significant parts of this rebellion, whether or not he realizes it. Speaking of the rebellion, though, we get to see X-Wings, we get to see Rebel helmets. It's all coming together, and it's really interesting to see that. And that's how really the episode ends. They head to Andor and Will head to Gorman, kind of off the books, and they want to take out Dedra. Little do they know what's coming on, because in episode 8 we have the Gorman massacre. But yeah, this is Cassian, you know, going rogue one last time, and we'll see where this goes. So episode 8, we head out here, and there's a lot of stuff about Gorman, right? There's a lot of agitation going on in Gorman, but Cyril's trying to figure out what's going on. He heads into a room full of K2 units. So, you know, I was wondering, because Alan Tudyk was in all of the press panels and things like that for Andor season 2, and I was like, how much of the show is K2 going to be in here? Because we're now over halfway through, and K2 is apparently just going to be really in the last 3 episodes, which is kind of a bummer, because I would have liked to have seen him a little bit more, but that's okay, totally fine. But once we see the K2 units in that little Imperial fortress, then we know that he's coming very soon. But he wants to know what's going on, and he goes up there to talk to Dedra, and he starts choking her again, of just an unstable character. And it was interesting, because I was kind of wondering, is he having a crisis of conscience here? I think at the end of the day, as we, you know, jumping forward a little bit, where he fights Cassian, I don't know if it's a full crisis of conscience per se. I think that he is starting to understand things and think about things in a more broad sense, as, again, you're confronted with the idea of the word that, you know, Mon Mothma uses is genocide, right? You know, massacring people. And when you're confronted with that, even Dedra has this moment later on where I even think she is confronted with the atrocity that she was witness to. And I think that, you know, when you see that, right, it's like, oh, you know, these Imperials who are so used to being so callous and everything, I think even they have a moment where they are reconciling with that, or they're trying to reconcile with that. Doesn't stop Cyril, obviously, from trying to kill Cassian at the end, because I think, you know, Cassian represents everything wrong, you know, everything that tried to ruin his life, right, earlier on in season 1, and I think that's never going to go away. And so I think that's why he tries to still kill Cassian later on in the episode. So yeah, I mean, Cyril, he's a very, very complicated character, and he doesn't make it out of the episode. But really, what the brunt of this episode is the Gorman massacre, and it's just, it's Star Wars, right? It is still Star Wars, but it's Star Wars at a level where it feels real. It feels like a real uprising against an oppressive regime, an oppressive government, and they're trying to stamp it out with the shields and trying to stamp out the protests, and the comment about fire at will into the crowds. It's chaos, it's death, it's destruction. The K2 units are terrifying. I know we learned to love K2SO, but they do such a great job of making you realize still that these are Imperial droids, because they are just the enforcer droids, and they're going after people, they're killing people. It's scary. It's terrifying. And Cyril is standing there in the middle of it, and Cassian and Will are in the middle of it. And yeah, the fight between Cyril and Cassian, it's brutal. Like, everything about this sequence is just brutal, and it's meant to, because the whole episode 9 is then built upon the fact that you've just witnessed as an audience member, but also Cassian has witnessed, and everyone in Coruscant has sort of been privy to the Gorman massacre. And it's meant to be impactful, right? It's just meant to be crazy, it's meant to be really heart-wrenching and impactful in that way. So we end the episode here. Will and Cassian say goodbye, although Will comes back later on in episode 9, and Cassian takes that dead droid K2, the KX unit, I guess they're calling him, the KX unit. And I think Cassian's seeing it now, right? He realizes that he is tired. He couldn't stop any of it from going on. He went there to try to stop Dedra, and he couldn't stop any of the massacre from going on. Even cold-hearted Dedra, has a crisis of not a crisis of conscience, I don't think, but just has a moment where she realizes what she was just witnessing there. So we had an episode 9, and we start out here with Bail Organa. So this whole episode is really oriented around the speech, and I like Benjamin Bratt. I like Benjamin Bratt in the role. I know that Jimmy Smits is the original. He was in Rogue One. He was in Obi-Wan. I like him. I like Jimmy Smits a lot, of course. But if you couldn't get Jimmy Smits, I think Benjamin Bratt is a good choice as well. And I think I like the fact that he knows he has to stay on Coruscant. He has to stay relatively inconspicuous, because I think he knows, right? He's hiding Leia. He's hiding one of the Skywalkers, and he knows that he can't make that big speech because of that. And Mon Mothma doesn't know that yet, but I think that it's a really clever way to kind of put that in here. So Cassian, right? Cassian is back on Coruscant, and he's telling Clea, he's like, look, I'm tired. And after everything he's seen, who can blame him? He's tired, and he's seen so much death and destruction, and he's had to be a part of it. And he's like, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. Clea, kind of puts him in his place, right? She's like, no, listen, you gotta do this. You gotta extract Mon Mothma. This is for the rebellion. And we all know that Mon Mothma's speech is going to make waves, and the Empire is trying to bug her and to catch her. So this is a big deal. It's a huge deal. It's so big that Luthen, kind of comes and tries to confirm that she's going to go through with it and make sure that she finds Andor. And she's, even she has the nerve to stand up to Luthen and be like, look, I mean, you killed Tay, and I don't know if I can trust you, but everyone is kind of with the understanding that if Mon Mothma gets arrested and Bail's team has been compromised, then the whole rebellion, it all goes down. It all really hinges on getting Mon Mothma out of the Senate, and it's really great stakes. It's able to. I love how much tension they're able to build for a political speech. I think that it sounds silly to kind of say that, right? You want your lightsabers and wars and Star Wars and whatnot. And that's great and all, but just building the tension of a speech, it's great writing. It's great television. I love that. And I was just cheering her on during the speech. She says, I wrote this quote down: "The death of truth is the ultimate victor of evil." And I just think it's so true. And she's calling it what it is. It's unprovoked. It's unprovoked death and destruction. She calls Emperor Palpatine a monster on the Senate floor. She calls it a genocide. She's speaking truth to power. And I love it. It's one of the most powerful scenes I've seen in Star Wars in a long time. And then from there, you have a hard pivot, not really a hard pivot, but a pivot into, okay, now she's given the speech. Let's get her out of here. The end of the episode, it's just awesome. It's bringing everything together, right? What you've seen from the Gorman massacre, for what you've seen from Bix, and understanding that Cassian is so important to this rebellion, and everything that's going on here. And he's, Cassian doing whatever it takes for the rebellion, killing people and just moving on, trying to get Mon Mothma out of here. And it's just bringing everything full circle. That's what I mean when I say that, there are certain parts of these episodes that are a little slower, right? A little bit, kind of what's going on here? Where are we going with this? But the ends of these arcs bring them all together, at least for the last couple, because the first one, it was okay. But the last, this one and the last one, really great. And so we head back to Yavin. I love how they're centering it still on Bix and Cassian. What I was not expecting, though, because I had the thought, right, when Cassian is telling Bix, I'm done, I'm leaving. We obviously know he's not done, because by the time Rogue One comes around, he's back in the rebellion. But what I was thinking about was, shoot, it's going to be hard because Bix is going to have to die, right? Bix is going to die. I'm presuming that Luthen and Bix and all those characters that we don't see and Clea are not going to make it out of Andor Season 2. I could be wrong. What I was not expecting was for Bix to leave. And it was heartbreaking because I started tearing up when I saw this scene because of her talking to Cassian through the screen, because it's again, bringing everything full circle. She's like, no, I know, and you know how important you are to this rebellion. And I can't be the one holding you back here. I can't be the one to tell you, to help you leave because you're important to this. And you can leave is I think what she's saying, but I can't be the reason why. And it's powerful. And I have this vision. I think I know how the series is going to end, right? Because she says, and it's when a writer does this, you just kind of know this is how they're trying to pivot to end the series, where she goes, when we see each other again. And especially when you know the character's going to die. So she says, when it's over, we'll do whatever we want to. And you just know. You just know. I mean, he's not going to make it out, right? He's not going to make it out. And I'm just envisioning the epilogue to this whole series. I think I know what it's going to be. It's going to be Bix realizing, or the aftermath of Bix knowing and finding out probably from Mon Mothma that Cassian didn't make it out. And I think that it's going to be it's going to be a really bittersweet moment because she realizes that Cassian didn't make it out, but he did. I would imagine this is probably going to be post Return of the Jedi or something like that, where she realizes that he did it. What he did single-handedly really propelled the rebellion forward. Not single-handedly. I just mean that, his actions, right, propelled the rebellion forward. And he was part of that group, the Rogue One squadron that did it. And I think that she's going to take solace in that fact, that she lost Cassian and they're never going to have that future together. But the rebellion and the entire galaxy won because of that. And I think that's, I would imagine, if I were writing this, that's where this is going to go. So keep an eye out for that in the last couple episodes. But of course, we have to end on the K2SO cliffhanger of it all. I'm very excited. I hope we get to spend all of the 3 episodes with K2SO and Andor, and basically just get another mini movie with K2SO, because that's the length of these 3 episodes, right? In each of the arcs, and so I'm very excited to see him in the next arc. But yeah, guys, this show, again, I think it would still benefit very much from a rewatch. I really do. But I also am just so impressed the way that they're able to make these little moments. Like in the last arc, when I talked about the fact that when Cleo is trying to get a listening device out of an artifact, so tense, incredibly tense. This episode, Mon Mothma's speech and just getting her out of the Senate it's incredibly high stakes. It's powerful, and I love it, and I'm just so excited to see where this series goes. And I'm excited to rewatch Rogue One as well. I'm very excited for that. So what did you guys think of episodes 7 through 9 of Andor Season 2? We're going to do one more of these, episodes 10 through 12, and then we will hopefully do a rewatch of Rogue One after that. Let me know in the comments down below.